Hello everyone, welcome to my second thoughts overview concerning Skulltaker of Khorne. So as always, I played through the initial turns, I observed the main ideas of the faction, which I'm now ready to provide to you. This is a brief overview, it should not be considered like a full-on, in-depth guide, step-by-step stuff, although it will help you out for sure. Now without further ado, let's play with Skulltaker. So, for your short victory condition, you need to empower 9 skulls in the Cloak of Skulls and to occupy, loot, raise or sack 30 different settlements. Now, the reward is the Chainsword, which is a massive brutal damage focused item. It will help your character to gain even more blood and skulls. So this is a very short campaign, should be very easy to obtain. So if you wish just a nice Khorne campaign to get a feel for the faction, this one is quite recommended. Now, the long victory requires you, of course, to achieve the short victory, occupy, loot, raise or sack 60 different settlements, and empower 18 skulls in the Cloak of Skulls. Of course, more on these mechanics later on. You also need to perform 8 rituals in the Skull Throne mechanic. Now, the reward is plus 10 Lord Recruit rank, which is always helpful, but with Khorne particularly good to ensure you can get an easier Exalted Bloodthirster later on, should you wish to. Now, it's a lengthy victory requirement, depending a little bit on certain situations, such as the availability of worthy skulls, but overall it feels quite a balanced short to long victory ratio. I like it a lot. So, Skulltaker. What is he? He is the Slayer of Kings and benefits from the access to the Cloak of Skulls. It's a unique mechanic allowing benefits to the faction after defeating powerful lords, so go after those lords. Hero capacity plus 2 for Blood Reapers. The Demon's Reforged mechanic has a plus 10% chance for Blood Letters to be restored for all armies, and a reduced upkeep for Blood Letters of Khorne and Exalted Blood Letters. So, of course, these bonuses solidify the idea that Skulltaker should focus a ton in the demonic units, although it's not exactly like an exclusive deal. You can have some mortal armies, for instance, which is great. And in terms of climate, it's fairly good, with only Athaloran areas really being uninhabitable. So although some areas are, unpleasant, it is quite a nice faction to attempt global domination with, and very, very good to try it out. In terms of starting location, it is fairly good, although you do start surrounded by factions that will soon want to wage war with you. Basically, you can have the tools to face them all, because you're not going to be facing all of them at once, of course. So, typical expansion goes into finishing off the initial enemy, and then proceeding towards the Lisman factions in Bretonnia to the north, or going into the south. You do have a very early choice to make in this initial campaign, with my recommendation being to stay clear from the jungle area and watch as the Skaven and Lizardmen battle it out to see who eventually comes out on top. So go to the north and then see who wins in the south. You also gain access to the sea, of course, if you pursue this course of action, which can also imply you obtaining some of the goodies. Now, in terms of diplomacy, although Khorne may feel odd using it, you can get some nice allies. Skaven, Dark Elves, even Vampire Coast are likely to be friendly to you as you rip the skulls of the Lizardmen and other Order-Tide factions. Natural enemies are of course plenty, including the entire Order-Tide, other Chaos factions even, so therefore you gotta expect to be always at war, which honestly is precisely what should happen on any Khorne campaign. So outposts with Skaven, Dark Elves or Vampire Coast will be welcoming to gain some nice missile units, or even some casters, so you have a bit of magic if you wish. So remember, you will always be likely at war with the Order-Tide, and maybe with some of the evil factions, the Chaos factions, but overall it's quite a nice campaign. In terms of mechanics, there's a lot of them to discuss, but I'll overview them as quickly as I can. So skulls, your currency, gained mainly from killing enemies or raising settlements. You can then use these skulls to occupy settlements in technology, as you see here, summoning blood hosts, or you can even give offerings in the Skull Throne, basically. So it's another one of the mechanics that you have. More on that a little bit later. So then we have the unholy manifestations. So these depend on the overall amount of Khorne corruption in the world. Then you have the Eternal War, which summons an army to fight a target army, including your own. Its main use is to use against yourself. Khorne's Glare, which takes immediate control of an unoccupied ruin. 3 is the Slaughter Incarnate, which gives 150% XP gains to the target character for 3 turns. Okay, and then we have the Call of Battle, which raises a target settlement. Remember, you can use the Call of Battle and then you benefit from that. So raises the target settlement is pretty cool. When you do raise the settlement, by the way, you have a chance for it to be colonized automatically by your faction. So all that is needed is that you own at least one settlement in the province. So and this chance can be increased by certain buildings or techs. So definitely one of the ideas from Khorne is just raise everything and then just have one settlement there. Skull Throne. It's a set of bonuses in essence that you can get by spending skulls. You have 4 tiers, each with stronger benefits, which you also unlock by spending skulls. So some of the more interesting effects include replenishment of movement and replenishment of the units for your faction leader, which is quite helpful to quickly roll over your enemies. In essence, just advance on it and benefit from it, right? Bloodletting. It's tied to every army. Basically, the more victories you have with an army in sequence, the better. Upkeep for that army can get up to minus 40%, replenishment to 10%, Khorne corruption and global recruitment bonuses as well, so just make sure that you keep fighting and keep winning that bloodletting. Cults are spread by your cultist hero and give some building possibilities that can alter how you approach the enemy. Now this includes the option to instantly teleport your faction leader, so it is great to send a cultist to a faraway location to quickly port your leader there. This is also a great idea, especially combined with the blood hosts. You just save up some skulls, for instance, for the or some unholy manifestations to benefit there. So overall you can quickly teleport to another place and just start raising and you know, basically doing a quick change of location. It's also interesting for that. Champion's Essence. Now this is specific currency for the Skulltaker gained by wounding or killing enemy lords. Now this allows you to have active effects on his Cloak of Skulls mechanic, which even includes a teleport feature. It includes a lot of different bonuses. I won't spoil them all, but enables the ability to travel to enemy lords, which basically everyone gets a teleport, but Skulltakers is super cool. I love it. Now, in terms of edicts, we have a control chance of a plague and Khorne corruption, as well as adjacent, recruitment cost reduction and recruit rank, as well as local recruitment capacity. The growth, construction costs, and Winds of Magic Power Reserve. So basically, you're going to be between both of those, these last ones. Yeah, that's typically what I would advise. You're recruiting, you pop this one. You're constructing, you pop the other one, right? If you have control issues, use the other one. Blood Tributes provides less upkeep armies in province and income from post-battle loot and income from all buildings. This is great if you have like a couple of armies nearby, because Khorne is always struggling with income. So definitely a cool one to have, or perhaps to use on a big province, because of course you'll benefit from the income from all buildings. In terms of army stances, you have the Combat Trials, which gives 1 skull per turn for each unit in the army. Winds of Magic, as well as giving some attrition. The Demonic Portal, this is the encampment, giving replenishment, immunity to attrition, but reducing Winds of Magic. Note that requires no movement, by the way. Raiding Stance, typical. It enables replenishment in foreign territory and immunity to attrition. Remember the replenishment in foreign territory, by the way, guys. Ambush costs 25 movement points, a typical one, and Forced March as well, giving plus 50 movement points. So overall, special attention to that Combat Trials. It's very good to quickly earn some skulls if you're not in any danger at the moment. And in camp, very useful because, of course, it costs no movement points as well. And remember that you can move, of course, using that Combat Trials, which is also perfect in that regard. Now, in terms of buildings, you need 7 buildings for maximum military, but more importantly, you need 2 province capitals for it. Now, this is because you have 2 types of settlements, the demonic settlements and the mortal settlements, as you can see here. As the name suggests, each allows buildings that recruit either the demons or mortal units. So you should swap the mortal or demonic settlement building accordingly to what you wish. Now, tier 3 units are already quite insane, to be honest. Exalted Bloodletters, Chosen of Khorne, Chaos Knights, and you have yourself an army in very little time. Of course, tier 4 and tier 5, that's where the best units are available to your faction, be it demonic or mortal based, but you do not lack quality in the lower tiers. So in essence, I believe you can actually do an entire campaign with just tier 3 units for sure. But of course, we always want to use every single unit, right, guys? Now, each military building, as you saw there, is also providing some gold. So that's the importance of keeping that military also well fueled so that you get those bonuses as well. Then, in terms of infrastructure, what do we have here? We have growth in casualty replenishment rate, attrition to enemies, and reduced upkeep for your armies and control, income from post-battle loot, which is faction-wide, an income from raiding all armies, an income from sacking all characters. So make sure that you build a couple of these to benefit. It's awesome. And then we have the skulls per turn and Khorne corruption everywhere. So it's pretty cool that we have the options that we have. Very nice set of buildings. Means you can very easily optimize for a grand strategy of maybe raising or looting or just quickly recruiting low upkeep armies. In terms of research, as you see here, is now been changed, with a split between military and campaign focus. Military is very well divided, sections for each type of unit, be it infantry or cavalry or chariots or monsters. I think the most interesting choice for me is actually at the research for the campaign. It's subdivided into 6 parts, which deal with either like income from battle, loot, raising bonuses, or then bonuses for skulls or hero and lord buffs in the middle one here on the Pillar of Rage. You also have some generalized province benefits in the Pillar of Honor. Let me show you here. Yeah, construction time, growth, defensive supplies, that sort of idea. It's here in the Pillar of Honor. Then you have both the Pillar of War and the Pillar of Prowess dealing with blood hosts. So if you're going to invest a lot in blood hosts, make sure that you get some research for them to give them a bit just extra edge for it. Overall, very good for whatever type of strategy you wish to implement. So as always, we have a split between the legendary or the specific lord skills, and then its melee skills, which are in yellow right below, starting with the Infernal Champion there. And then we have the red line skills or the army skills. I just like to mention this because people typically ask me. And then blue line skills or a campaign. So starting with the blue line, we have casualty replenishment rate and attrition reduction as a top priority. It allows you to vastly expand since your force is quickly restored to full power. You can also have reduced upkeep and even further help with demons reforged as well in the very last one with the relentless advance. Also a nice recruitment cost reduction if you need, especially for that global recruitment is cool. And then we have Renowned and Feared, upkeep minus 8%, the campaign range is always nice, so typically that's what I would go for. And then the red line is quite nice, as it is mostly split among mortal units and demonic units, or splits kind of like by role. So still this allows you to have armies with many different units who benefit from the same skill, so it increases the synergy with just a few skill points that you use. Now remember that Chaos Lords have a different set of red line skills. I'm going to show them later on, and you should take some time to check which unit combinations are better and which lords really. So more on that later in just a few bits. Now in terms of the heroes, just a quick analysis that I'd like to give you is that the Cultist of Khorne is the one that gives replenishment to troops. It also has some summons which may be in your interest to just keep moving, replenishing, fighting and winning, of course. With the other heroes having different ones, such as the Exalted Hero having the training ability. So this is just of course excluding their battle capabilities. I'm thinking on the overall sense of what they contribute to the army there. So in terms of the army compositions, here are both red lines for Khorne. First, the red line for the Heralds. You can see the typical division between monsters and demons and mortal units. Second, we will have the Chaos Lords, the red line for the Chaos Lords. Now, these are quite different. You may wish to spend some time familiarizing with them. A small example, Heralds, for instance, give more melee defense and physical resistance to mortal units, while Chaos Lords give more armor and spell resistance for all infantry units. Skulltaker is all about the Bloodletters and Exalted Bloodletters, so combinations of them and other demonic units make, of course, perfect sense. For anti-large, some Minotaurs, for instance, with great weapons, those are always very good, should do the trick, or you can have a nice combination with Skull Cannons for some ranged possibilities. Of course, nothing forbidding you from having different army compositions, these are just, as always, ideas for you. Then for other heralds, you can go into a few combinations with demons to a classical Exalted Bloodletters with monsters combination is always terrific for a fast in-your-face combination, or you can have just some form of ranged, especially useful if the enemy brings out some mild flyers and you don't wish to invest on your own flyer units. Then we have some Chaos Lords, which really ensure mortal units are better overall, so here are two strategies, one involving some Minotaurs for anti-large. You can see that I like them a lot, they're very, very good, honestly. And the other army idea, just relying on brute force at the front line and having some flanking power with the Skull ones. Yep. For the Blood Speakers, they enhance the new units of Skull Reapers and Wrathmongers and give some speed and armor piercing, which is excellent for fast units, so therefore it makes sense either to have some beasts or a tier 3 focused army with that second army that I give you there. Second example, very fast brute force based. If you then upgrade some heralds to Exalted Bloodthirsters, Khorne demon units obtain some nice barrier hit points if you use that skill, so you can have some nice compositions between mortal units, demonic units for certain. It's really up to you. These are just, like I mentioned, some themes, some balanced army ideas, and of course feel free to use whichever you wish. Now, in terms of the starting army to late game progression example, this is something new that I'm trying to give you. So it's like if you start with those units, like I see there, then as soon as you complete certain buildings, you should recruit those units. As soon as you complete some of the buildings, like going into the Exalted Bloodletters, then you should continue into that second army, full army that you see there, still using the Flesh Hounds a little bit if you can, or you can replace them with Harpies, basically. That's what I like to recommend. Depending on your playstyles. Not Harpies, Furies, sorry about that. And then if you complete all those other buildings, like more into the tier 5 units there, you can add for those for that cavalry unit. And in essence, the main red line skills are there that you can focus, and you can see that those units kind of synergize really well because they're about on the same red line, about almost on the same building, which is something that I like to do. Like if I spend only 2 buildings to build armies that will benefit or they go from the early to the late game, then perfect. So that's the sort of synergy that I want you to think about, okay? And in terms of final thoughts, let's go to this. So, Skulltaker is really a demon-focused campaign. Of course, you can still use mortal units, but the theme, alongside plenty of blood hosts, should be sufficient for one of the easiest conquer-the-whole-map campaigns. Now, the faction suffers a bit from having no magic. So if you're a magic enthusiast, you may want to stick to a shorter victory, perhaps. Still, there's a lot of fun of just having some of the best melee units in the game. Growth can be a pain a little bit, as well as income, so it is encouraged to use either upkeep reductions or a sack, raise, or in loot economy, even if you are in the red, because that will happen. Typically, this is the faction that you will run in the red for a long time, and you're gonna have plenty of enemies, though, to fight and to gain income via other means. So, it may seem one-dimensional, but that is the fun. So, as for army, you have great and powerful infantry, some average missile choices, some great monsters and single entities, good cavalry and chariots. It lacks some missile options and lacks any form of magic. Now, replenishment is really good. probably one of the best factions around. Make sure that you check for the proper mechanics to increase it, and you always be looking for some important synergies between edicts, buildings, and bloodletting for heavy upkeep reduction. That's typically what you should be aiming for. That upkeep reduction, the bonuses from fighting, the income from fighting or raising or looting, that's what you should be looking out for. So, I believe it is time now for Blood for the Blood God and Skulls for the Skull Throne with Skulltaker.